Hi folks, welcome to Crisco's Corner. Unfiltered commentary. And that's your truth, the real truth. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for your support. Hi folks, welcome back. As promised, Game 1 of the World Chess Championship 2021, played in Dubai. As black, current world champion Magnus Carlsen from Norway, and his challenger is white, Ian Nepomniachtchi from Russia. It's going to be a pretty good match, I think. And there's a lot at stake, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube that shows the playing hall and the venue, and I guess the convention center, whatever is in Dubai. It's massive, massively huge. Boy, there's a lot of money in Dubai. Anyway, folks, here's Game 1, and let's get to it. Like I said, Nepomniachtchi, the challenger, is white, and he plays e4 right off the bat, Magnus. So now we're looking at Brie-Lopé. Now, what happens now is it depends where this bishop goes. Does it go here, or does it go here? That will determine what the opening is now. Nepomniachtchi, I'll just say Nepo, it's just easier. This is basically a martial. It's, for non-chess people, it's incredibly boring, to tell you the truth. I don't like it myself. But these guys know this opening, down to move 20-25. There's anti-martial play against it, and I was a little disappointed. And then I thought about it, and this is Game 1. A lot of nerves, a little jittery, even though they're young guys. Play something they know. And so it made more sense after I thought about it. Knight. Castles. Bishop. Rook comes over. Now, what to do? According to the computer, you see on the right here, anybody that doesn't know how to read this, you'll see the 1, 2, and 3 on the right towards the bottom. And those are suggested moves by the computer, the top 3 moves. In other words, right now it's black's move, and black is suggesting is a number 1 move, number 2 move now here. And then suggesting here, and that's how you read it. It does suggest bishop here, but that's not going to happen because you don't want to move the same piece twice in the opening. So what did Magnus decide to do? He pushed the pawn. The bishop comes back. Okay, we got our basic, I guess we called it a closed Brie-Lopé, for lack of a better term. That's the opening. Those, if you don't know how to play no chess openings, that's an old opening, hundreds of years old. That's the neat thing about chess. They have games that are 400, 500, 600 years old, and you can play them over again. It's pretty cool because they've been recorded. So, castling for Magnus. H3. Now, what that is for is 2 reasons. You want to control this square. You don't want this knight getting here, and you don't want this bishop eventually getting here either. I don't like that move. Plus, at the same time, it makes an escape square for your king if needed in the future. So I kind of like that move. Knight, you're going to hit that bishop. You want to get that bishop off the board. That bishop is pretty powerful, bearing right down on the king. And then if a knight ends up taking the bishop here, black will have the bishop pair. And bishop pair is pretty powerful stuff. You coordinate those together in an open board, and it could be a lot of trouble. So knight takes, a-pawn takes, bishop. Now, right now, technically, white is a pawn up. Black sacrificed a pawn. But look what they call compensation in chess. You got this piece doesn't move. This piece hasn't moved. The queen's not doing anything. He's out in the open. This pawn is under attack. So that's what they sacrifice a pawn for position. They call it compensation in chess. You're compensated for the pawn that you're down. So, of course, he guards the pawn on e4. That you have to do because you want to open up this diagonal onto the white king. And eventually you can get the bishop here or the bishop here and bear down on the white king. Or even from here, bear down on the white king. So this bishop pair is going to play a role here pretty soon, I think. E takes, queen takes. Now he's threatening mate, of course, as you can see. Queen takes. Here is mate. So this is a tough choice. What do you do? If you go knight back here, I don't think that's so hot, even though you're threatening the bishop. I like knight f3, and that's exactly what was played by Nepomniachtchi. I'll take that back. Queen f3, excuse me. Bishop. Now you have to be very careful here. As you can see on the right, this can get tricky in a hurry. Because right now the threat, believe it or not, is queen takes. You'll say, John, well, the rook takes. Yeah. Then this bishop takes, pawn takes, bishop takes rook. You're down a piece. You have to be extremely careful. But this is a move I didn't predict. And the computer, of course, found it. The computer doesn't always find the best move. It's interesting. Sometimes computers don't understand positions. And that is, in our scenario we just did where queen takes, here, this rook is unguarded. So Nepo decided just move the king over. And now we see on the score it's a small advantage for white. Not much. So he's not, his position isn't that great because of the pawn. And if you look at this, these two pieces really suck. They're not doing anything. For those who don't play chess, it's like if you're playing basketball 5-on-5 and one of your players was just standing at center court not doing anything. That's in essence what it is. So rook comes over because in the end scenario we talked about, now the queen can take, but the rook's guarding it so it can't. Queen takes, knight takes. You want that knight right in the center of the board. Bishop d2. Finally the bishop got the move. That's two minor pieces for white that haven't been moved yet. And we're on move 16. c5. Here come the pawns. Open it up a little bit. Knight f3. Rook d8. Put the rook back in the center of the board where he belongs. Knight c3. Hitting the knight. Decides to go after the c-pawn. And, of course, white has to protect. Now, this rook here is in a really crappy spot, babysitting this pawn. You don't want a major piece like that babysitting your pawns and not being the center of the board. Rook a c8. Right now, you see on the computer, it's a tiny advantage at best for white because he's a pawn up. But I like Magnus' position better. As you can see, these two bishops are just murder. Just murderous coming down here. This rook's here. You're going to open this up with a pawn push. There's a lot going on here. Knight comes back. Knight comes up. Bishop e3. Knight e7. Trying to maneuver his knight around. Bishop f4. Bishop f4. He wants to trade. White wants to get one of those bishops off the board. But the computer actually likes this. The computer likes knight to g3. h6. Rook e1 is a sequence. Knight here. Knight f5. Bishop comes back. Rook e2. And it likes it a little bit better for white. And that's a nice spot. But instead, Nepo went bishop f4. Magnus took the knight. Pawn takes. Bishop takes. Knight takes. Now the bishops are off the board. White got his wish. The bishop pair is gone. But this is so awkward. Granted, white is a pawn up. Look at these isolated pawns. Isolated pawns are where there's pawns that don't have any pawns on either side. So now this king is going to have to babysit those pawns, and that's not really ideal. Plus, the isolated pawns become targets. Rook c6. Rook e1. Remember, this is game one, and they're trying to get the nerves. You know, there's a lot of hype that's like anything else as far as they're concerned. You know, chess is the best players, of course, making the best moves. But there's a ton of psychology in chess. It's amazing to me how you can psych yourself out or psych yourself up or psych out your opponent. Knight moves, of course, because it was under attack. Pawn comes up. Now there he is going after the pawn. This pawn's not defended by anything, so the knight's going to hit him. So he has to move the rook up. And that's not a very good place for that rook. Babysitting those two pawns. King comes over. Yeah. King comes over. Because if we get anything like this, you can't do here anymore. King guards that square. Knight goes to g2. Man, that's a miserable move. But he wants to get rid of that knight. Knight comes back. Rook, of course, moves. g6, just to cement the knight in. That way he doesn't have to move. And you can see now, there's no pawns on either side for that knight. They can't come here to harass him, so that knight can stay there. Knight to e1. Just a passive, miserable move, but he has to do it almost because he's got to guard both of these pawns. Knight comes back. Rook comes down. Pawn up. Rook e3. I like black. And you can see on the scoreboard, it's a small advantage for black, even though he's a pawn down. White's position is just miserable. It's not losing or anything. I just don't like it. It's uncomfortable. It's too passive. All your pieces are on the bottom three ranks. I mean, you're not threatening anything. All you're doing is defending. And psychologically, that really sucks when you're playing. Because you want to go after your opponent, not defend from him. This knight comes up looking for a better square. He moves the knight. Pawn. Now, black wants him to do this. He wants him to. You lock this up, it's going to be trouble. King comes up. A very interesting move. Put him in the center of the board. I think what he's trying to do is get the king to come over in this direction. Remember, the king only moves one square at a time. King comes over. Pawn takes. Pawn takes. Now, you don't want to play king takes at all, because then you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All 6 of your pawns will be isolated. And the game, as far as I'm concerned, is over. Pawn takes. As you can see now, the computer is adjusted a little bit on the right. He gave back the pawn. And that's a thing that you have to remember. Don't get greedy sometimes. And what I mean by that is, white was a pawn up. But he needed to help his position a little. So what he did was he gave the pawn back right at the proper moment. And that's tough to teach people, to give back material, because instinctually you want to keep what you have. But he did the right thing. King comes over. Rook comes back. Slight advantage for black according to the computer. H4. We'll play out the last few moves here. Position's basically equal. I like black's position a lot, but here's the problem. He can't make much progress. Knight comes up. Rook comes over. Knight comes up. Now he's threatening here. Hitting both rooks. Black has to react, moving over. He hits the rook. He moves, hits the rook. Moves, hits the rook. Moves. And he goes knight c4, and that's when they agreed to a draw. The position look at the computer is 0.00, and that's as dead draw as you can get it. Because this rook can't leave this file because he's guarding the pawn. So this knight can just keep harassing it. The rook goes here, the knight goes here. The rook goes back here, the knight just comes back. And that knight just harasses. That knight that was doing nothing for a long time finally got in the game. So it's a draw. I wasn't surprised it would be a draw, usually with all the tension. So there it is, folks. Game 1 of the World Chess Championship 2021 played in Dubai with challenger Ian Nepomniachtchi against Magnus Carlsen, the current world champion. Ian's from Russia and Magnus is from Norway. So I haven't done a chess video in a while, so I might be a little rusty, so forgive me a little bit for that. And until the next time, goodbye and good luck.